Hey, I think that we are live. What's going on, guys? It is Jordan with Laundromat Resource. And listen, you don't need to hear too much from me today because I have brought with me the Human Laundromat Encyclopedia, your favorite and mine, Andrew Cunningham. How's it going, man?
It's going great. Busy as usual. First month was kind of slow, but it's picked up and got some exciting things going on.
That's what I like to hear.
Yeah.
What's up to you guys? How's it going? James already in the chat, and Harbinder, what's up? Mike Stefanos, what's going on, guys? If you are here, awesome.
Yeah.
What's up, Ted?
Yeah. Hey, James. Hey, Mike. How you doing, buddy?
If you are here, throw in the chat where you're chiming in from. Madison is here. What's going on? Laundromat Resources here. That's cool. Let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Andrew, where are you tuning in from?
I'm tuning in from Torrance, California.
Nice. Torrance. Has it been raining like crazy over there?
No, we got to have a little vortex here. We got about 3 inches max. No, we didn't get pounded like everybody else did.
I know, man. I saw some of those videos and I'm like, is this the same California? I mean, we got hit, but not
12
that
inches
hard.
in some places. That's a lot of rain.
That's insanity. Yeah. Hey, we got a good crew rolling up. What's up, Madison? What's up?
All right.
What's up, Ted? What's up, Miles? Waleed is here. Check out Laundromat CEO conference coming up, right? I think it's just Laundromat. Is it Waleed? Is it Laundromat? Put the link in there. Is it laundromatceo.com? Jodan Reed, what's up? And splash them out. Adam, Andre, hey, Andre is in Torrance. You know Andre?
Yes.
Oh, nice. James in North Carolina. Stephanie, EPA. Hey, I lived in Palo Alto.
Robert, what's going on out there?
Ryan in Rhode Island, Georgia. Nice. Alexander representing Iowa. Way to represent Iowa strong with an exclamation point. I've never heard anybody be like so excited about Iowa, but I'm glad you are.
Ted must be in the water hit hard areas of Southern Cal.
Must be. Trevor, Santa Clarita. All right. I'm heading out to Magic Mountain here pretty soon, so I'll head out and see you. Madison's in Charlotte. Welcome, welcome. We're all over the place. Georgia. We're international in Toronto. What's up, Alex?
Look at
Scott in OC, my neighbor. I'm in OC too, Scott. And Denzel Washington. That's Waleed. That's awesome. I forgot about that already. I'm glad, Alex, I'm glad you brought that back, the Denzel Washington. Hey, guys. Oh, Sandeep, what's up? Small money trading. Yes, the presence of the guru, Andrew Cunningham, is here. Yeah, and Kelly Reed is here, too. There's other gurus in the chat, so super excited. I'm going to give Andrew... Yeah, I know. Me too. I'm going to give Andrew a second just to kind of introduce himself in case you guys don't know who he is. But while he's doing that, hey, this is a live Q&A. You have got the Andrew Cunningham on with you. And I'm around too. And there's some other legends in the chat here. So if you've got questions, let's start those things rolling in. If you've got newbie questions, that's awesome. Get those in. If you've got laundromats and you've got a question about your laundromat or how to improve it or whatever your question is, get those in too. Yeah, personal Waleed hype man. Yeah, well, he's got a few of those. Madison also in the chat, who is a I guess hype woman for Waleed. So yeah, get those questions in. But while they do that, Andrew, give us a little intro as to who you are.
I have just about 40 years in the biz. Started back in 1984 at the largest at the time, the largest distributor of speaking equipment, PWS in Los Angeles, and then stayed there until about 1990. And then I moved away with my brother Bill, and we started our own company. And we ended up launching the Lucy's chain, which got to 29 stores. And then after that, we parted ways, and I went on to stay in this industry and learn everything I possibly could and soak up all the information I could. And then he went on to real estate development, and here I am today, having fun doing what I do.
Yeah, dude. And not only that, but listen, man, multi-Laundromat Resource podcast guest over here. Multi. You're rivaling. So Dave Menz and I used to do these once a month, but we haven't done them that regularly for a while. And you're getting up there where we've done almost as many as Dave and I. So, dude,
I like
awesome.
talking to people across the U.S. because they bring such a diverse a layer of questioning and different things, and it's a lot of it goes back to some real basics, and other things are just quite different than the rest.
Yeah. Well, listen, we've got questions rolling in. Are you ready to get going?
Sure.
These things, if this one goes like the rest of them, we're gonna struggle to get them all answered. So we should probably get rolling on these
Okay.
things. You good to go? This is one that I get a lot. You've probably heard this a lot. Adam says trying to buy first laundromat, and the seller says it's a cash business, been hands off forever, no P&Ls or anything like that to share. They can share bank statements, but any advice on how to purchase this laundromat, or should they purchase? And if they should, how do you go about doing that?
Well, that's a loaded question. You can buy a laundromat. I got to see what their financials are. I got to see what they've got. Anybody who tells you that they don't know is just bold-faced lying. They all know. It's just how much they want to throw a flag on themselves and get a 15-yard penalty in case someone were to report them to the IRS, which nobody would do. So the question now is what are they willing to put up as evidence that they're doing the volume? Remember, they're trying to take your money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and yet they won't give up a document that says, honest, this is what I'm making. So I kind of already have a bad taste in my mouth with those kind of sellers. And it takes a lot more work to understand what they're trying to say with their meager documents. And then, you got to take it and look at it and say, my experience says that a laundromat that uses so much cubic feet of water in a monthly basis should be doing in this range. And it kind of gets me to a warm place where I can say, it's starting to make sense. And I start to work my way down a bunch of questions and a bunch of math that I do. And I look at utility bills and I look at usages, and I can kind of get a feeling for it. But for a newbie or for someone that's just a first time or a second time buyer, it's pretty damn impossible unless you're going to believe what the seller gives you.
Yeah. So if I could just summarize what you're trying to say here is don't go that route on your own. If you're trying to buy a laundromat and you're just struggling to get numbers from the seller, then you've got to, you don't have to, but take it from my experience. You're going to want somebody who has experience helping you through that transaction. And it probably shouldn't be a broker. Probably should be someone like Andrew Cunningham, who you can book a call with, by the way, if you want to. And there's ways to go about figuring out how much money comes into a laundromat, but it's not easy, especially if you've never done it before. And that's a situation where you can find yourself in a world of hurt if you do it wrong, because like Andrew said, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars a lot of times for these things. And so if you get it wrong, it ends up being some very expensive lessons. And again, take it from my experience. I know. So if you don't have numbers, you don't have P&Ls, get someone to help you go through that if you want to continue
absolutely
forward with that. Okay, there's a question about this one. Should be a fairly simple answer, I think, but I think it was Ted. I think it was Ted trying to buy a second location, and they're doing an asset sale. How is that different from a standard sale?
Well, with an asset sale, they're basically saying we don't want to reveal any kind of financial information whatsoever, nor be reliable for any information. So we're just going to value the assets, such as the washers and dryers and the ceiling and the floor and the walls and the plumbing and the electrical and the sewer. And we're going to put a value on that based on what we think it's worth. And then you can buy that, and we're not disclosing anything to you. You're taking it over as is, and good luck. And so, I would say, sure. If the demos work and it's a good neighborhood and you think you can give it a go at it, I'd probably pay $25,000 or $50,000 for it, but that's about it. Most of these guys want 100 or 200,000. It's not worth it, and they can keep it. It's it's almost a sneaky way for someone to say, hey, I can cheat you, but the only way to do it is to sell you on an asset sale and not on documentation for the revenue I'm generating. Regardless of what it is, I don't care if it's 3,000, but you're generating something, I mean, you pay the bills every month. So, you can't BS anybody really that you don't know. So I'm not saying don't buy an asset sale based laundry. It just, you have to start to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah. And, let me clarify too, cause there's that an asset sale can mean two different things depending on what they're saying. So typically what they mean is what Andrew's talking about, which is basically I'm not selling based on the income. I'm selling based off what the assets are worth. Now that I found tends to be a highly debatable number. Usually, they usually tend to value the assets, quote unquote, much higher than they're worth because usually they're not worth anything. And if they were worth something, then they'd probably be making money in the business and they'd rather sell as a standard sale. So that's one meaning of asset sale. And that's typically what it means. But also in the transactional sort of legal sense, you do want to typically, again, not a lawyer and not giving advice, but typically I will purchase a laundromat through an asset sale as opposed to a stock purchase. And essentially what that means is I'm buying the assets of the laundromat, which includes the equipment and the goodwill of the customers. I'm not purchasing, for example, the LLC, stock in the LLC and taking over the LLC. And there's benefits to doing an asset sale over a stock acquisition. They're both tax and legal reasons why you don't want to usually do that. So I just want to clarify that because it can get a little confusing if you get into a transact or an offer or whatever, and in there it says an asset sale. Typically in the purchase agreement, the legal document, what they're talking about is you're buying the assets of the business, which is the machines and all that, and the goodwill of the customer. So, but if they're marketing it as an asset sale, that is usually what Andrew's talking about. So I just want to clarify that real quick.
I want to go to Adam. Adam says he's buying his first mat. Seller says it's cash, hands off. Yeah, right. And doesn't have a P&L. Says he can share bank statements. Okay, the bank statements are probably going to be underreported because nobody wants to raise their hand and pay taxes any more than they have to. You'll have to build a P&L from those bank statements, and building a P&L is not that difficult because most of the things that you have in a laundromat are you have records for. You have bills, you have utilities, you have a lease. So I'd start with the lease. I'd start with the utility bills. I'd get 12 to 18 months of those, and I'd build my own P&L to see exactly what kind of cash flow this laundromat's throwing off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, that's great. Okay. Should you, so if I understand this question, should you raise money to do a new build for a laundromat? And if so, or if you're just building a new laundromat, they're saying, how do you determine the placeholder? But I think the question is, how do you underwrite a new build? You have any thoughts on that?
Are you talking about building a store from scratch?
From scratch. So here's
you're going to need a chunk of change.
Do you raise capital for a new build? And how do I find a placeholder budget for a project is the question. Sorry, Alex, I butchered your question earlier.
Yeah, there are different line items for a budget for a new store. I'll give you a down and dirty to kind of just spin you a little bit. Your average laundromat's going to cost you about $250 a square foot for tenant improvements. And that's everything all the way up until you buy equipment. That includes the fancy signs and the neon lights and the buffed floor or the concrete sealed floor, or whatever the case you want. It's about $250. And then you're going to spend probably $600,000 or $700,000 on new equipment. So you're going to be at about $1.2 million to $1.5 million when the dust settles for a new store. And $1.2 million is probably going to have to do 40 a month, and $1.5 million is going to have to do 50 a month. And, you're going to need some heavy duty demographics and lack of competition to be able to accomplish that. That's if you go to a landlord and you say, he says, I got a space to lease that's 3,000 square feet, and it's got a bathroom, and it's got a ceiling, and it's got a floor. And you say, okay, well, I need to turn that into a laundromat. That's what it's going to cost you approximately.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about raising capital, listen, building from scratch, you can do it. You can do it. You can do it for your first deal. You can build from scratch. But it's a lot more involved. There are laundromat specific things that you need to know, like water line sizes, gas line sizes, drainage, all that stuff that you need to know. So either the builder needs to know it or you need to know it. And your time to open is long, and your time to break even after open is long. So you've got a lot of holding costs there. So,
right.
So you just need to be aware of all this stuff. And if you're, again, I'm not trying to push Andrew's consulting on anybody or anybody's consulting on anybody, but these are situations where you're putting up, I mean, we're talking probably 7 figures if you're building from scratch. Some places in like the Midwest, you can build for less, but we're talking hundreds of thousands at a minimum, if not 7 figures to build this thing from scratch. Don't do it without having somebody in your corner who knows what they're doing. That would just totally be my question, or my answer to that.
LinkedIn. I had a laundromat buyer tell me that the broker had an exclusive contract to purchase equipment built into the sales contract. Is that contract enforceable? Well, if you sign it, it probably is, but why would you sign it? You're buying a laundromat. You're not buying a laundromat and equipment unless you agreed to in advance to replace the equipment, and unless the broker also discounted the laundromat the price that you're going to pay for the new equipment, since you have to replace the equipment to begin with. So contract could be enforceable if you signed it. Otherwise, it's not enforceable. Whether or not a broker can force you to buy equipment at the same time sell you a laundromat, I would question that also.
Oh, Alex, did I butcher your question again? I saw Alex said totally wasn't a question. I don't know if you're talking to me or somebody else.
No,
I'm trying to catch up.
I'm talking to LinkedIn user.
I know you. I was talking to Alex. There's a lot of questions rolling in, so I'm trying to catch up on all this. Okay. I think this is a great question. This is why are single store owners undervalued compared to multi-store owners in our industry?
That's a real good question. I think it has to do with the fact that most people are in awe that someone has 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 stores and they're managing it, and that's what they do, versus a single store operator. Mm-hmm. But I know quite a few single store operators that have hit grand slams and are happy with what they've done throughout California, North Carolina, Texas. So I guess you'd say it's a prejudice. I don't have any other answer. It's, people look up to people that have, so many more businesses than the others, yet the ones that I don't know if they all run like a top. I don't know if the 5 stores that guy owns down the street, that 3 of them are really good functioning stores. But the one guy, he's got a store that's kicking butt and taking names. So he should get the credit.
Yeah. And I think too, listen, for me, like one thing that I say all the time is 99% of America could replace their 9-to-5 income with 1 to 3 laundromats. So if you've got more than that, I think that's an accomplishment. That is something to be learned for. I did a poll one time of my audience of, what people were wanting, what people were wanting for their laundromat portfolio. 1 to 2 laundromats, 3 to 5, or 10 plus. The overwhelming majority of people who responded to my poll, like almost 90% of people who responded to the poll, had aspirations for 10 plus laundromats. So I think that is probably part of what plays into why, multi-store owners are glorified, because a lot of people have aspirations. And granted, it's a lot of people who've never owned a laundromat before, so they don't know what it takes to own 10 plus laundromats.
Sure.
But I think that's, big numbers. We want, we just kind of glorify that. But really, again, 1 to 3 laundromats is all it takes to replace almost everybody's income. And so if you've got one laundromat and it allows you the freedom that you want in your life, who cares who's glorified, right? Like, who cares if, the guys with, the Willafords with 30 plus laundromats are, the big show. You're living your life, right? So, all right, here's an interesting question for you. Is a lease that's $2.40 per square foot a good lease or a bad lease?
Well, to me, that's a simple question. Mine is, how many square feet, number one. Number two, what's the shopping center? What kind of parking do you have? What's the ingress and egress? What's the exposure? Does it have a signal? Is there a crosswalk? That's the first thing I look at when I talk about a lease at $2.40 a foot. The next thing I look at is, at $2.40 a foot, multiplied by how many square feet, what's the total number? I divide that total number into the gross income. If it's less than 25%, I'm a happy guy. If it's less than 20%, I break down doors to write an offer immediately, because that doesn't happen, and I'm a happy guy. However, if the $2.40 represents 40 or 50 or 60% of the gross income, I'm walking away from it.
Yeah. Unless you have a super solid strategy on how you're going to increase that income and get those percentages back in line.
And that,
100%.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that depends on demographics as well as competition.
All those things. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, and I will also say that, listen, your market is really going to, I literally was in a negotiation yesterday. Well, it was not a long negotiation, but I was in a negotiation yesterday with a leasing agent in Manhattan, no, Harlem, in Harlem. Well, in Harlem, who wanted $10. Well, on the East Coast, they do per year. So it's $120 per square foot, or $10 a month per square foot for the rent amount. And I was like, and it was a 1,500 square foot store. And I was like, that store will never, it was a laundromat that just closed down. And I was like, I see now why it closed down, because that store will never be profitable at $10 a square foot or $120 a square foot per year.
Right.
There in that location where it was. So it was not a long negotiation, but what I'm trying to say though, is it really depends on your market, and the demographics and all that. If you're in Kansas, you probably shouldn't pay $2.40 a square foot.
No.
Okay. Good question.
I saw one back here, China equipment. Yes.
Yeah. That was the next one I was going to hit. That's good. You got any thoughts on equipment from China?
The best piece of equipment that I can recommend that anybody buys today is the one that's readily available, easily worked on, and parts are readily available. End of story. That's it. Can you get parts from China? Do people know how to fix the China machines? How much? What are the parts readily available? Can you get all the parts you need to keep your equipment running? That's the question I have. If the answer is yes, and it's fully stocked and you can get all of that, and it's obviously going to be cheaper, yeah, I'd buy it tomorrow morning. But I haven't found that to be the case. Tolan came in from Turkey, and Tolan's not a big well-known brand. They're OPL, but they're not laundry. Now they're trying to sell in the laundromat area, yet they don't have any representation in most states. So how are you going to get parts? Wait for them to get shipped from Turkey? I don't think so. So that would be my biggest issue I had with buying off-brand equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree. The other aspect too that I'll just throw in, and I was writing, so if you said this, my apologies. But the other aspect I'll throw in is if it's a brand of equipment that's not well known or not established in the States or wherever you're at, longevity can be a question mark. How long are these things going to last? And so, one of the perks of buying an established brand is that a lot of times they come with warranties, and you may not get that if you're buying sort of direct from China. So that's another kind of thing to consider. Unless Andrew already said that, then you already considered it. Thoughts on building new? I mean, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but do you have any thoughts on, should somebody build new for their first laundromat?
What's that?
You're not listening to me. Join the club. Nobody's listening to me, especially my wife.
What was the question?
I said, do you have any thoughts on should somebody build new for their first laundromat? We talked about it a little bit, but building new.
If the market demands it, so you have the demographics, and it's lack of competition, and you're going to put a laundromat in an area that has been sorely underserved for years, absolutely I would. But those opportunities are getting fewer and fewer each year. So if you have it and you're looking at demographics, and I mean you're looking at probably in a mile radius 5 or 10,000 rental units, and you've got 2 or 3 competitors and they're all trash, absolutely. But if you're trying to split 1,500 or 2,000 rental properties or renter doors, and you already have 3 competitors, it's a tough battle. You're not going to capture what you think just because you're brand new and exciting. You'll get some, but you won't get them all.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And just if you guys are on YouTube, I know we're on a few different platforms here, but if you're on YouTube right now, there's some good chat going on with people throwing out different numbers for build outs and how much it costs them. It seems like you were pretty much spot on. Big surprise. Big surprise.
What, me?
Yeah, you. Yeah. It's almost like you know what you're talking about.
I try.
Almost. All right, I got another one. Somebody said that they are looking at a laundromat that they know the previous buyer bought it for 100, put about 80 in, and is selling it for 190. Is that a deal that they should consider?
What's the cash flow? What's the rent to gross ratio? What are you paying for vending? What are you paying for labor? What do you have budgeted as a line item for parts and repairs? Not some $250 and the guy says, "Oh, I'm fixing the equipment." So it's a tough question to ask from the limited information that's here. You got to go a lot deeper than the guy's bought it for 180. He wants 190 now. I mean, what if he doubled or tripled the cash flow and it's now netting 5,000 or 6,000 versus the 1 or 2 when he bought it? So everything's relative when you look at I look at a couple of categories. I look at lease, financials, equipment, location, growth potential, and opportunity. And they all work together to get a value of a business. And you may find where there's great opportunity and great upside, or in fact, you can grow it quickly. And then you may have a rough corner that you're on where you have limited parking and you're relying on more walk-in people, but that doesn't mean it's not a good, viable business to buy at some price. So a couple of things get moved around when you look at a laundry, and it's not just cash flow. It's not just equipment. It's not just lease. There's other factors that play into it.
I would just tag. I mean, I agree with all that. I would say I actually don't care if they bought it for 100 and spent 80 to do it, and they're selling it to me for 300 if the numbers work. Like I genuinely don't care how much money the previous owner is going to make on the sale, or if they did the work to improve the business to make the cash flow good enough and they got a good lease in place and that thing is humming along, and they're going to make 6 figures off it, but I'm going to make what I want to make every time I buy a laundromat. It does not matter to me how much they invested in it. And I'd be happy for them that they did that. And I'd be happy for me that they did that for me. And now I get to get the numbers that I want to get based on what they did. So I would say focus less on that side of things. And just like Andrew was saying, hey, this is just a math equation on one side. And on the other side, there's these other factors like the lease and, age of the equipment, all that stuff. But first things first, do the math and see if it makes sense. If it's cash flowing, that's step 1 complete. Check that box. If it's not, then you're probably done right there. And so don't focus on what the previous guy's making on the sale would be my take on it. Would you ever pay just for the infrastructure? Like if a laundromat's not making money and there's, the infrastructure's there, would you ever pay for that laundromat?
Yeah, it goes back to the last conversation that we had, which was, yeah, I would if there was absent competition, or the competition were what you would call zombie mats, and the demographics would indicate to me that there were sufficient rental units, not renters, but rental units in a designated area, half a mile, 1 mile, and it looked like it was being underserved. Absolutely. No question about it.
Yeah. Yep. And that's what it comes down to. And I'm going to skip a couple real quick because somebody asked a question, very, very generic question, but how do I get started and buy my first laundromat?
Go for it.
Listen, I do, first of all, I do a webinar every single Thursday, just about on how to do that exactly. And we go through step by step how to do it. There's one happening tomorrow, 4:00 Pacific, 7:00 Eastern. Go to laundromatresource.com. You can sign up for that webinar. Even if you can't make it, I'll send you a replay to it. So we do a webinar. That's going to give you a really great baseline there. You're going to have a really firm understanding of how to value a laundromat and what to do to actually buy that thing. But, like everything, devil's in the details, right? And again, if you're feeling uncomfortable, but you're buying a laundromat, you're feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling like you want some backup, that's a good time to bring in somebody alongside you, somebody like an Andrew Cunningham or somebody else who knows this business well to help you get those details sorted, because it's those details that can really make or break you in a lot of situations. So, okay.
Okay, I want to respond to Ms. Haley, who said, I spoke with the Tolan distributor. He said they have a lifetime warranty on parts. Great. How long does it take to get parts from Turkey? How many months? Are there any tariffs that you have to pay extra? Do they have any bans from you receiving parts from Turkey? Are they going to withhold it so they can look at it and find out it's really, a bearing and not something else that they would say that is not allowed in the United States? So, and then who's going to fix it for you? And what if you're 100 miles away from the local distributor? So it goes into the whole picture of, there are other pieces of equipment out there that are more readily available, more easier to work on, or have people working on them now. And the parts are readily available, and it's the way to go. So if you want to buy Tolan, buy it. I'm not against it. I think, most washing equipment is washing equipment, in my opinion. But what's going to help you get down the line when you need parts and you need service and you have an off brand that nobody knows about and nobody's willing to touch?
Well, and that service technician thing that's real, right? Because these things get used and abused. These machines, somebody even mentioned in the chat, like, hey, these things are meant to do high numbers of turns. Like, these things are working. So you better have some confidence that, number one, they're going to keep working. Number two, you can get those parts. And number three, when it does break down, not if, but when those machines do break down, do you have somebody who can fix it? Because if not,
right,
then they're worthless.
I don't think there's any, I want to bring something up. This just came to me, and this will be the first time I've actually spoken to a crowd about it, or I mentioned it. You haven't even heard this. Exclusive. Well, wait, you and I briefly talked about it way back.
Okay.
And that is,
as long as I'm on the inside here,
that is, you want to make a boatload of money in this industry? Get a service company out there that services equipment, all brands. Find a company, open up a service company that does security and does cameras and does videos and fixes technological things that can work on the boards on your computers, can help you understand your machines. People that have companies like that would make bank in this industry. Bank. It's not here. Nobody has it. It's mom and pop. And the mentality is you have to go to someone that isn't familiar with laundromats, or they don't really understand cameras or video or DVRs or whatever you need for recording and what have not, or cloud-based. And if somebody was smart enough and put a small crew together, they would make a lot of money in whatever town they're in. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, come to LA first, because we
need it badly.
We're dire over here. Yeah, that's.
I'm going to go to Yoga Plant Based. Would you purchase a brand new laundromat that just opened a few weeks ago? Owner has to sell due to personal reasons. Sorry about that. And how would you determine the value of the new laundromat? Well, the value of the new laundromat is show me the bills that you paid for the new laundromat, because I'm not paying you a penny more for any of it. That's the first thing. You're not entitled to a profit any way, shape, or form. That was your risk. You took it. Your loss, not mine. That's the first thing. Second thing is, before I bought it, I'd want to know what projections are they using, what projections did they use, and who prepared it for them, so I can understand where they're going with it. The next thing I would do is I'd look at what kind of rent they're paying on this laundry, and I'd multiply it by 4 times to realize exactly what I needed to gross in order for the rent to be less than 25%. Then I'd look at my demographics to see if I could support that in the neighborhood along with the competition. Once I did those studies, I'd come back and say whether or not I was interested in buying the business altogether, and if I was, at what price. But I'd start with the fact that the guy just put in $500,000 in tenant improvements, and he has bills to prove it and what have not. I'm starting there. See what happens. It may be worth it. It might not be. You might not be able to do more than 15,000 in there because you're limited with your demographics. So you can't drive people from outside your area if within, I'm going to say, a 5-mile radius, particularly in rural America. In Southern California, it's a half a mile. A mile, you're going to bypass 3 laundromats before you get to this one. So
At least.
I'm looking at some internal things to look at to answer your question there on what would I pay, and it would be exactly what he paid for or less. And then I'd have to study my neighborhood to find out if it's worth getting involved altogether.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, not to add, I mean, I don't need to add too much to that. Other than, listen, everybody who's selling is selling either for personal reasons because they're retiring or other business interests. That's like the 3 most common things, and they're all very vague, right? And sometimes the people who are retiring are like 40 years old, and I'm like, are you really retiring, or are you just losing money? You're just tired, right? So, yeah. So I mean, I think you need to tread carefully there. Could be a great opportunity, right? Could be a great opportunity for you, but you do need to tread a little bit carefully there because it is, there's risk associated with buying a business that somebody's only owned for a couple of weeks and are selling for an unknown reason. And I think you need to price accordingly because of that risk. That risk is worth something to you and is a penalty to them. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Here's one for you.
Okay.
Miss Haley asked, with no prior experience and a go-getter attitude, how do you convince a landlord to give you the opportunity? And I'm looking at that going, sometimes with a baseball bat.
Golf club, baseball bat. Yeah. Got to show them you mean business. I mean, I got a couple things that you can. So I'm assuming you're trying to lease a space, and the landlord's looking for somebody who has a little more experience to give them a little more stability there. So there's a couple
things there. Real quick,
Yeah.
There's 2 things. Is it an existing laundromat and you're trying to get them to give you the lease assignment, or is it a new location and you're trying to convince them that a laundromat would be really good for his location, and here's how? So 2 different areas. Maybe perhaps you could clarify that.
Yeah. So, okay. So if it's an existing laundromat and you're trying to get in there, most likely you're trying to lease the space because that business has already failed, and or that lease is expired and the landlord is not super excited about putting another laundromat in there because the previous owner botched it, right? They let homeless people run rampant. They let the machines break down. Their shopping center has been run down because of this laundromat, right? They're just not happy with that laundromat. I see that a lot too, right? So if you're going to try to convince that landlord that you are, to give you a shot, basically, then number one, I mean, listen, ambiguity is going to be the death of that deal, right? So you need some clarity on what you're planning on doing, what your business plan is, and you have got to sell this landlord. You've got to sell, and you've got to sell a vision of a different type of laundromat, right? So when that landlord thinks laundromat, they're thinking right now, oh my gosh, there's going to be homeless people around. Nobody works at this laundromat, so there's nothing anybody can do about this laundromat, right? And they're thinking, that it's going to be dirty and dark and it's going to bring down business for the other tenants, right? You have got to sell a different vision of what a laundromat can be in that space. So whether that's putting in new equipment, whether that's attending it full time, How are you going to solve the problems the landlord's been observing, and pitch them a vision of what this laundromat could be like, and how this. I mean, listen, you're a landlord. You want what? You want your business to make more money, your real estate to make you more money. So you've got to sell them a vision of how this new vision of the laundromat is going to attract better tenants for him, and how it's going to allow this landlord to charge more to other tenants, right? Like, you've got to be an asset to this landlord, not a liability. And the previous the previous owner most likely was a liability to the space, right? And if it's not an existing laundromat and you're trying to put one in, and you don't have any experience, sometimes one of the best things you can do, I feel like this is like a commercial for you today, but one of the best things you could do is say, hey, I've got somebody like Andrew Cunningham in my corner who's helping me build this thing out. He's ensuring I have a plan to build this thing correctly. He's ensuring I have a plan to operate this thing correctly. It's not just me. You don't have to trust me because I don't have that much experience, but I've got the right team in place, right? This is not an I sport. This is a team sport. And here is my team. I'm working with this lender. I have this consultant that I'm partnering with, or I have this partner who does have experience, or, you know what I mean? Again, it's a sales job. This is a sales job either way. You're selling the vision of this business that you want to build, and you're selling yourself as, hey, I'm smart enough to know what I don't know, and here's how I'm overcoming that. There's a few tips. I don't know. What do you got?
I think you covered it. I'm happy with your response.
That was very long-winded, so
that's all right. You got it out.
I got it out. You got any suggestions as a current laundromat owner, but they want to build their email list? They want to grow their list of email customers that they have, so they can contact them more. You got any tips for that?
No.
Okay, I do. I have some tips. So a couple things. Number one, easiest way, one of the easiest ways to do this is to offer free Wi-Fi, but just gate it with an email address. Have people have to log in or give you their email address to get free Wi-Fi in your space. So that's one way. Another great way, and I think this was maybe a new build too, I forget, but if I'm building new, there's going to be a digital payment system in there, hands down for me. It's a no-brainer in my mind. So it's like a LaundroWorks or a Sense or a Spider Wash or something, right? Pay range. If you have that system in there, you can just have them register their account with you and collect email addresses through that payment system. That is the easiest way to do it if you have that capability. Go ahead.
You can also tell them if you lose your card, if it's a loyalty card, you can find your loyalty card, because we can now register it with your email address so that you get that information too.
Yep. Have them register the card. You can get their email and even a phone number so you can do text messaging campaigns. This is great for, if you've got customers who haven't shown up in 30 days, you can send them a quick text message or a quick email address and say, hey, haven't seen you in a little bit, come on back. And you haven't seen them in 60 days. Hey, here's $10 to put on your card. Come on back. We miss you, whatever. And it's a great way to stay in contact and to stay front of mind for these customers.
Right.
So
Dr. Bombay wants to know, do we have a crystal ball on what the interest rates will be for equipment this year? Yeah. No, I think you probably could expect to spend anywhere between 10 and 11%. I don't think it's going to go. It's at 11 and a quarter, but I don't think it's going to go up any further. I think it'll cap off. It might fall a point, but that's pretty much what you can expect. Anybody have any experience out there that's just recently bought equipment, what they're asking or what you paid interest rate wise?
I am seeing some deals out there through some distributors. Deals maybe it's a little strong, but I am seeing some like, hey, we'll give you a certain interest rate, like a prime or a fixed rate for a year, and then it'll change to like a prime plus 2.5 or something like that. Prime, last I looked a couple days ago, prime was 8.5. So, that's an 11% rate right there. So rates are high. Where they're going, we kept hearing rate cuts. And then we started hearing no more rate cuts. So I don't know, man. I think probably where we're at is where we'll be for a little bit. I would love for things to go down. But again, it's all math, right? So even at a high interest rate, if you can make the numbers work, then don't be shy to do deals. If you can find deals that work with the numbers we've got, and if you can't, then don't do those deals.
There you go.
Okay. Somebody said, this is very vague in general, but somebody said, hey, I have a laundromat. Give me some tips on how to make it more profitable.
Oh, where do I begin? I mean, it's a rabbit hole. I'd need to know more information about the whole operations that you have. Do you do turns per day? Do you know what your machines are doing? Do you know what revenue it's generating? Do you know what competition has? Do you know what you know how many 30 pounders are in a half a mile of you? 40 pounders, 50 pounders. How many 45-pound stack? How many 30-pound stack? Do you know your market? Because it starts with understanding all of that so you could formulate a plan to raise this price or raise that price or do this marketing strategy or do, so it you need to have all that information first to make a really good business decision on how you're going to approach your next level of raising prices if you do, and that's what you want to do. So, my rule of thumb is the only thing you do during the summer is you make your place aesthetically more pleasing. Fix all the boo-boos, throw paint, put wax on the floor, get it shiny, make it look like a brand new penny. So when school starts, you can raise prices again. And then just before the summer the next year, you're raising prices again. You're going to at least raise 3% across the board so that you can pay for your increases in rent. So you're not going in the hole. So you want to stay ahead of that game. So I without specifics, without you telling me I'm grossing this, here's my equipment mix, here's my vend prices, here's my competitors, here's what they have, it's difficult for me to answer that question. I need more information.
Yeah. And it is a little bit nuanced, right? Depending on the situation and stuff like that. I mean, I would say, listen, if you're really, there's some basic things, right? Make sure your laundromat is the cleanest laundromat around. Make sure all of your machines are working. Make sure your pricing is appropriate. Most laundromat owners can stand to raise their prices right now, today, tomorrow, right? Go do that.
Yep.
So simple things like that. But assuming all those things are taken care of, I mean, you've got a ton of new cheap marketing resources at your fingertips. Start exploring those. Look into geofencing. Look into native ads. Look into Google and Facebook ads. Try some different things to get people into your laundromat. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do, right? But if you're looking for a specific plan for your laundromat, guess what? The guy is right here. You can book a call with him anytime. Again, this is not supposed to be a commercial for you, but I want to just, it's incredible to me that people can have direct access to you to talk about their specific situation. So if you're interested in that, like, that is available to you. That's probably the last time I'm going to say that, because I'm getting sick of, I feel like I'm just building you up too much right now, but
Jordan, I have to respond to something. Alex just asked me if one of my dogs is okay, and someone just sent me a text saying, "Is your cat okay?" I don't have a cat or a dog in my room.
Dog. Right, I texted my wife right now. I was like, "Can somebody let the dog out of the cage?" He's like yelping down there. That's mine. So I
got no noise here. It's a soundproof room right now.
We bought this actually at the Clean Show in Atlanta, Georgia last year, a year and a half ago. My wife texted me and was like, "Hey, there's an Italian Greyhound breeder in Atlanta. Can you get us an Italian?" I was like, "Are you for real?" So I got this dog after the Clean Show. It's supposed to be like a non-barking dog or non-noise making dog. You can hear it is not that. So I feel a little bit gypped right now.
Okay, well, it's not me. Okay. Let's see what else we have.
This is a good one, actually. I actually am curious as to your thoughts on. That's your phone, though. I just want to point that out.
I just turned it off.
I just wanted to point that out. I'm actually curious about your thoughts on this. Somebody asked, which I think is a great question: why is there no CapEx ever figured into laundromat numbers, capital expenditures in the P&Ls?
It's never been in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it since the beginning, and I've been doing this for 40 years. It's never been in there. I don't disagree with it. I've tried to implement some steps along the way, and I'm a lone wolf. Um, and so, in the early days, it was 20 times gross. You didn't argue about anything. If your laundry did 20,000, it was 20 times gross with $400,000. And over the years, it's gotten a lot more sophisticated, but not to the level that it should be. I mean, I sold other businesses. I was involved in some of the larger M&As, $5 or $10 million, and the financials that you went to and the ad backs that you did are hell of a lot different than what you do for a laundromat. So we're actually back in the Stone Age when it comes to that. To be honest with you, it's true. It would certainly alter the landscape of valuations that we have right now, obviously. But it's one of those battles that if you take it on yourself and you start to do it, you won't have any business and you run yourself out of town because nobody else is doing it that way, and you're only harming yourself. So until we get more sophisticated as owners, operators, as consultants, as brokers, coming together so that we all are working for the same common goal, this is what we're going to be faced with. I mean, I had a client today. He says, "Hey, I'm interested in this laundromat." I says, "Great, send me the information." He sends me the information, and it's Remax. And I'm thinking to myself, what is a Remax broker who does nothing but residential real estate have anything to do with a laundromat? They should be barred from it. You should have to have a special license to do what a broker does. Now, I'm not saying all the brokers out there are neato and keen and all that stuff. And I'm not promoting that right now. What I'm saying is there's people in this business that don't belong in there, particularly ones that are in other industries that require a real estate license that think I can make a buck in the laundromat industry, and then they screw it up for everybody. So sorry on that long-winded answer.
Yeah. Well, and Andrew and I have had conversations about this. We're frustrated with a whole bunch of things about the broker side of this industry right now.
Right.
And that CapEx thing is one of those things that
Yeah.
the problem is, I think the only way I see this changing is if we shift into a buyer's market. We're in a seller's market right now. If we shift into a buyer's market, then buyers can put pressure on sellers to do that. But put yourself in a seller's shoes. I mean, do you want to give up all that equity because you got to factor in CapEx if nobody else, you didn't buy it at that and nobody else is selling it at that? No. So, I mean, it's tough. It's just, I mean, the reason that it's not there is because it hasn't been there.
Right.
And there's no external pressures to force anybody to put it in there.
No, that's right. There is
so
none.
until that happens, it's just going to be what it is. And you've got to kind of finagle that.
Sure.
There. How far away is too far away for a laundromat? That's the inevitable. We get that one every single time. How far away is too far away for a laundromat?
Should I tell them the story?
Sure.
The story is real simple. It's Saturday afternoon. You got a birthday party for your 6-year-old daughter. You got 30 people coming over to your house. You get that emergency call. Oh my God, the place is on fire. Now, in reality, it's maybe one of your dryers did catch fire, or maybe you've got a belt on one of your top loaders that's smoking like a chimney. And the next thing you know, the fire department's there and they shut down the machine and you have to drive to your laundromat. It's 3:30 in the afternoon. So you tell me, if it's an hour away, that's 2 hours drive plus an hour there. That's 3 hours. It's 6. The birthday's over. Just so you need to consider how far you're willing to travel for an emergency for a laundromat. And I know some of you guys are in rural America. I got that. And that's one of the things that you'll have to consider. But here in tight cities, I'm no more than 45 minutes to an hour tops. And everybody has their druthers. It's actually, sometimes it's a personal preference. You may find a great deal in another city that's 6.9 miles away, or it's 30, 40 minutes or 50 or an hour. It doesn't matter. What's comfortable for you? You have to realize that whatever you're going to do, you got 2 times whatever it is to travel there, plus whatever you're going to do when you're there. So tough call.
Yeah. It's a little bit of personal preference there. On like you said, I mean, that literally happened to me on my daughter's 7th birthday. I had to actually, I snuck out and made it back just at the start of the party, but my wife had to set all that stuff up on her own. She was not happy. about that. So that story is not a fictitious story. That's not an if, that's a win. I've told the story about how I had to go on Christmas Eve and dig a potato out of the toilet because somebody shoved a potato in the toilet, and the plumber that I called out, the emergency plumber, charging like 4 times normal because of Christmas Eve, told me he couldn't do anything because there was something solid in the drain. I was like, yeah, I know. That's why I called you, to get the solid thing out of the drain. So I had to go on Christmas Eve and pull off the toilet and dig out a potato out of the toilet. So stuff like that does happen. Not every week, not all the time, but it does happen. So you got to consider how the dog is still going over here. Sorry, guys. You got to consider how far you're willing to go, or you've got to have reliable boots on the ground that can do that stuff and manage those problems and collect coins if you got coins and that kind of thing for you. And that's hard to find sometimes. Not impossible, but hard to find.
Okay. Stephanie says, you recommend purchasing a laundromat and leasing it, or buying commercial real estate that has a built laundromat? I would always recommend, if you can afford to buy the real estate, buy it. You'll never have to worry about prices going up. You'll make more money over the long run. If you run a decent and good business, you'll make money because your rent is going to remain static, except for your maintenance and repairs.
Yeah. And I mean, like everything, make sure the math makes sense, make sure everything makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with that 100%.
Okay.
You got an approximate time frame to profitability from if you open a new build from day one, open the doors till you hit that break even point?
I would probably guess to say it's probably close to a year, maybe a little bit more.
I've seen. I mean, I think, surprise, surprise, you're spot on. But what I've
18
seen
months,
is 6 to
12
18
months,
months.
18 months. And some people say 2 years. I go, I don't know. I got to go back to the real basic things that I look for when I'm doing this. And that is my competition. And do I have enough human beings that are my customers in my marketplace to do what I'm trying to accomplish? And if I'm bringing in a new store in an existing neighborhood, which it would be, and there are already competitors there, I'm going to take something from them, but I'm not going to close them down. People are still going to go to them. They're familiar with it. They like it. They also will go to new. So if you don't have the people, all you're going to do is take a pie of, say, 5,000 renters, and they're already going to 8 laundromats. You add another 9th laundromat, you're just dividing up those same people over 9 versus 8, basically. So there's a mathematical equation that gets in there when you're looking at it to say, does the area need another laundromat? And if so, where should it go? And what is it offering that's different from everybody else, if it is? I mean, it's got to have great parking. I mean, and there's all these other things. And the size. What size are you going to build? That's an important part. I could talk 15 minutes on the size of a laundromat and the gross income. But for the most part, that's how I'd look at it.
Cool. You got any tips if somebody wants to do a 24/7 laundromat? You got any like remote monitoring tips or anything to do to make sure that business is okay?
Well, 24/7. The truism that your dad said to you when you're a young man or a young woman was, nothing good happens after 1 o'clock. So between 1 and 6 is your downtime. If I had a wash, dry, fold, I would do my wash, dry, fold between 1 and 6. It would depend on why you're going 24/7. What neighborhood are you in? Are you at a university? Are you in an area that has a lot of stewardesses in it and they fly at different hours? Are you in a casino area where you've got workers at all different hours and all different scheduling? Are you near an auto plant that runs 24/7 and people get off and that's when they do their laundry at between 1 and 6 a.m. because they don't have the other time, they're sleeping or they're working? I mean, all those things factor into whether or not I'm going to go 24. And then you have to look at what's your labor costs for just the 24 and what's that going to cost you on an hourly basis to make sure that you make up for that with customers coming in.
Yeah. Again, I mean, it's math equation, right? But you know, really, I mean, pay attention to what neighborhood you're in. So my first laundromat, I've told a lot of stories about my first laundromat. But my first laundromat, I did 24/7 unattended. I did 24/7, had remote monitoring, all that stuff. And I will say that my income increased fairly significantly, actually, but the problems increased more significantly by being open overnight. And I think I ran it that way for like 6 months. And eventually I just was like, you know what? The increase in revenue is not worth the increase in headaches. Now, if I had somebody working there 24/7, then it's a matter of, okay, well, do I make more money by staying open and keeping somebody there to keep the problems out? Or do I make more money by closing it at 10 or 12 or whatever, and then opening in the morning and not having to have somebody working overnight? So again, question about that. Also, not my phone. You're so popular. You need to answer that, dude.
That's my phone.
Somebody is like trying to get a hold of you. Somebody dying or something?
Yeah, I know. They all try to get hold of me.
I'll just answer this real quick. Is there a subscribable calendar for Laundromat Resource events? I don't know the answer to that. We just rebuilt the website, and I don't know what calendar we're using. Somebody asked about the calendar on Laundromat Resource website. We just rebuilt it, and I don't know the answer to that question. I'm going to look into that because we should have that if we don't have that.
Okay.
For sure.
Let's see here.
You got any repair resources?
No. That's why I said we need repair people in this industry.
Yeah. There's some stuff on YouTube, but it's tough to find. Tough to find that.
Oh, Adam, how does one determine the number of turns for a machine? Okay. Well, you collect each individual size of machine, and you divide it by the number of days that collection represents. You divide it by the number of machines, and you divide it by the bed price, and that'll tell you what the turns per day is on that piece, on that size, 20 pounders, 30, 40, 50, 80, whatever.
Yeah. And we've got some resources on the site you can go download even for free to help you determine turns per day. Okay. This is an interesting question. Somebody's got a high performing laundromat doing more turns than all the competitors, and they want to sell and be able to obviously maximize the value of that, but they don't want to divulge to like the competition, their competitors, how well their laundromat's doing compared to the other ones. You got any suggestions with that?
Let me understand this. You have a business that's booming, making all this wonderful money. You want to sell it for top dollar, but you don't want anybody to know that you're selling it for top dollar because it's doing top volume.
It sounded like they don't want their competitors to know what volume they're doing. I think that it sounded like they're okay with letting a buyer know, but they don't want competitors to know.
Well, you could do what most brokers or most sellers in Los Angeles do, and that is wait till some buyer knocks on their door. Don't deal with any broker. And when the buyer shows up, you say, hey, you want to buy it? Great. Promise not to reveal these numbers. And you buy it and you sell it to that one guy and nobody has to know. But if you're going to put it on the open market and you're going to try to get the highest and best price for your laundry, that's the suffers that you'll have to go through. There's nothing you can do about that, period.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing.
I don't think that if somebody, honestly speaking, if you've got, I don't care, 5 competitors within a half a mile of you, which happens a lot in LA, and you're doing better than most, because I'm not sure that you know what everybody's doing, but I'll set that aside, and you're doing bang up bucks, I guarantee you those people would have already decided to take their zombie mats and make them nice long before you showed them what you're doing in volume. So they're not going to jump at a chance to make more money or try to steal your customers by spending more money because they would have done it already. So I don't see it's a lose-lose for the guy trying to sell a laundromat that's doing great volume. I don't see it. And it's going to last 45 days, and then you've sold the laundromat, and then what? You're going to feel guilty that the guy who bought it might have a competitor that's going to remodel his laundromat so he can compete with that. That's not your problem anymore. That's somebody else's.
Yeah. I mean, really the best thing you can do, and how effective this is, I don't know, but you can have, if you're going through a broker, have the broker filter people out and have them sign NDAs. I mean, that's, you know, that's your kind of one line of defense. And,
right,
you know, if somebody violates the NDA,
I've never seen in 40 years somebody go after somebody else for revealing information about a laundromat, because what happens is you go to dinner with your best buddy, or you go golfing with your guys, and you tell them you're buying a laundromat, and you tell them all about it, and then they tell two friends, and they tell two friends, and before you know it, one introduction, 18 people know about your business. Now, are they going to do anything about it? Probably not. Can you prove it? No. To me, it's a non-issue.
Yeah.
In my book.
What are your feelings on manufacturer branded stores and the growth of chains?
And the what?
Growth of chain stores of laundromats.
Well,
the manufacturer branded stores.
I think competition is healthy for everybody. And I really don't think in today's day and age, except for money, greed, that anybody's out there to just plunk another laundromat in a certain area just because they can. Now, some people might think that's wrong, or they might think that I'm off base on that, but that's okay. I look at it this way. If I run a good laundromat, safe, well-lit, profitable laundromat, and I do everything I'm supposed to do, and I advertise every quarter, I'm having a customer appreciation, and I'm doing exactly what I can do, there's little I can do about preventing my competitors from doing anything. And after a while, you'll begin to realize that you're your own worst enemy, and you're your own competitor. And you know when you should replace washers, and you know when you should replace that coin changer because you're going down there too often. So I say, you know, if you've got a good operation and it's kicking ass and taking names, take care of what you have at home and don't worry about the rest. As for distributors coming out there and doing franchises and things like that, I'm dead against franchises. I'll say it right now. I'm dead against you paying somebody a percentage of your income based on the demographics that they have identified that you need in that area. Period. So there's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, my thoughts have been made clear multiple times on the podcast. I'm not a fan of what's happening with distributors taking customers' data and then plopping laundromats next to their customers and stealing their customers. Not a fan of that. And I think that if we don't do something, we're heading down a path that is not going to be a good one for the independent owner operator. That's my personal view on that. Do lenders prefer deals that include real estate? I'll just say about that.
Go for it.
SBA, easier to get SBA lending when you're doing real estate. If you're going with like a laundromat specific lender, irrelevant. I mean, they'll lend on the laundromat. So sometimes yes, sometimes no. But if you're doing SBA, it is easier to get a loan typically if you're doing in real estate, and you get better terms a lot of times too. If somebody's not ready to buy a laundromat yet, should they start their own? Do you recommend they start their own wash and fold or pickup and delivery service before they own a laundromat?
Well, it's two different markets in my book.
Mm-hmm.
One is self-service. The other is you're doing a service for somebody, whether it's drop off or pickup and delivery. So, there are quite a few people that I haven't seen on our threads, but I know there's quite a few people out there in the United States that actually do it at home until they've established a decent base that they said, oh my God, I can't do this anymore at home. Mm-hmm. I need to hire somebody else to help me, and I need a new shop. So it grows out of something from that. Or you've got a laundromat that they kind of touched bases or delved into the wash, dry, fold, drop off, pickup, and or delivery, and they're expanding on it. Now they need more room, but I'm not sure that I would go on the premise that a neighborhood needs wash, dry, and fold unless I had some insight into what exactly was going on.
Yeah. And I'll add to that, I've had people on the podcast, Alicia Crowley, Mark Vlaskamp, probably the most famous one, right? Who have been Madison Anderson, who've been super successful with starting with pickup and delivery before owning the laundromat. But I'll speak at least for Mark Vlaskamp, because he said this on multiple occasions, is that it is a difficult way to start. It's difficult to start that way. Is it possible? Absolutely. Can it be hugely profitable? His business grew to be worth multiple millions of dollars. So yes. Was it easy? Absolutely not. Was it passive? Absolutely not. It was the exact opposite of passive. So can it be done? Yes. Just know what you're walking into if you're going to do it.
Right.
If you plan on doing it right. And that's going to be a lot of work. This is a funny one. Are high interest rates driving down multiples?
No.
Yeah.
They're not. There's no other. No,
they're not. Yeah. This is a good question. I actually don't. I'm blanking on an option. You may not know, but somebody in the chat's got to know. Are there any good radio or music services that you guys are using in your laundromats for radio? Do you know of any?
No, offhand. Mike Padromos, Stefanos. Do you have somebody?
Yeah, somebody out there.
There's a couple out there. I just haven't been exposed to them.
I have, and I can't even think of any of them off the top of my head right now. But if you put it in the chat, I'll be sure to shout it out to people. What's the biggest mistake people make for a white box new build?
A who? What?
Somebody's building out a laundromat. White box. It wasn't a laundromat before, and they're putting one in. What's the biggest mistake people make?
I don't think that I think one of the things is that they don't have a contingency plan if something goes sideways, like a 10% overall for the budget. And then I don't think that they pay enough attention to, once it's built, what it's going to cost to get the ancillary things together, such as, do I have all the laundry carts that I need? And then I go to, do I have all the product I need for all my vending machines? Or did I buy vending machines, or were vending machines even included in my order? And then I'm looking at, well, are cameras installed? No. Do I want to videotape it myself? No. Do I have, did I include card system? Point blank. Oh, I completely forgot about that. Could we do it after, my marketing, what's it going to take for me to market my laundromat? And then how many months overhead do I need? On what trajectory of income that the laundry would help mitigate some do I need to have in the bank for rainy days, lack of a better description? And I think that most distributors or builders of laundromats don't go that in depth with customers, with clients, and they should. And I think that people get caught flat-footed and they go, now what? Well, no one told me about that. So that's where I would look at it to say, I don't know what each specific answer to your equation is, but I'd start with how much is my insurance, how much is my rent. Forget the utilities, because there'll be a percentage of all those numbers once you find out what they are. And then I'd add all those up and add my percentage of utilities on top of that. And then I'd multiply that out for 12 months and say, that's how much cash I need to have in the bank to pay those immediate bills. And so, that's how I would start to layer my extra dollars that I'm going to need to run the laundromat after I paid whatever I paid for the new store or remodel.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the biggest mistakes I see are, underestimating how much it's going to cost and underestimating how much time it's going to take, and
Sure.
those holding costs that you mentioned. I mean, that's, that you don't want to forget that you don't need enough money to get to open date. You need enough money to get to profitability date, right? And like we said, that's probably 6 to 18 months, maybe up to 24 months until you get to profitability. So you've got to have that sort of factored in there. And then there's make sure your builder or whoever's installing and stuff understands the needs of a laundromat, right? Got to have enough electricity, got to have enough water coming into the store, got to have enough pipe to get water out of the store without flooding your place, right? So make sure you got all that, and venting and airflow, makeup air, and all that stuff. I shouldn't have said makeup air. Now we're gonna go.
Oh yeah, but don't go there. I promised myself I wouldn't go there with makeup air right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to the next question. Jeff, which was, I think, almost an hour ago, when opening a laundromat that has just been closed or just in bad shape for 6 months to a year, how do you suggest, how do you suggest marketing to show it's welcoming, safe now? Well, having firsthand experience on that in the last year, I will tell you that add about 4 to 5 months on to what you think it'll be. I did it. I actually experienced it. I actually wrote a check several times to the landlord for rent because I hadn't hit my mark yet. And it was a meth den that took a lot longer than I anticipated to get the women to feel safe to come back. And I undershot it by probably 4 to 5 months. Towards the end, it got better, but I'll tell you that I will probably tell you a year, 9 months to a year to really get all of them to feel safe to come back. They came back 1 or 2 a week. I was hoping I'd get, 1 or 2 a day, and that wasn't realistic. Smaller store, but nonetheless, it was a danger. In fact, when we remodeled it and we reopened it, the mayor came to our grand opening promotion, and he said he had slated for this laundromat to close down if someone hadn't remodeled it to begin with. That's how bad it was. Mm-hmm. So I would probably tell you about a year, and I would do probably marketing once a month with flyers to certain areas in the area to get the people to back in. Remember, something to think about. For every 100 people that you get to come into your laundromat, that's worth about $7,000 a month, about $70 per household, ballpark. And if you look at those numbers, then you're going to say, oh my gee, I only need 200 to do 14,000. Yep, that's about right. And if you need 14,000 to make a good living, and that's what you're after, then you should be able to accomplish that. It's not that many people.
Yeah, and I'd say, hey, take advantage of some of this new marketing technology. I mean, geofencing can be super powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
I was speaking at a meetup in Spokane this last weekend, and we were talking about marketing, and I was asking the people in the room who all own laundromats, how many of you guys are marketing? Most of them were not. That's what I'm talking about. Most of them were not, but I started telling them about geofencing. One person was using geofencing that was there, and they're like, yeah, you know what we do is we draw a line or draw a boundary around all of our competitors. And anytime somebody walks into that competitor's laundromat,
right,
guess what? Now they're going to start seeing ads for our store and getting deals for our store. And, if that laundromat owner is not doing a good job, guess what? They're going to lose their customers to the laundromat owner who's geofencing their customers and getting them to come to their store. Listen, if you're marketing there, and you don't have to necessarily do your competitors. Some people don't feel good about that, and that's totally fine. There are other ways to use tools like geofencing, pretty economical. Google ads, Facebook ads, obviously there's more native ads capabilities that we have now. So utilize these tools that we have that used to be only for the big boys, the big corporations. They're now becoming more and more affordable and accessible to people like us, laundromat owners. So, yeah. But yeah, it does take time, but it's worth it. One of the big mistakes I made with my first laundromat is I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in fixing the place up, and I spent $0 in rehabbing the reputation of that laundromat. And so it took 2 years plus to get that thing turned around and to have the perception of the laundromat turned around. And then the other thing, like at least in the space where that laundromat was, guess what? Turnover for renters on average was 18 months. So every 18 months, you've got fresh new people coming in. So you got to keep marketing so that the new people coming in and hear about you too. So awesome. Okay. Somebody is sharing frustrations you and I have talked about of brokers ghosting them. They're reaching out to these brokers. They're trying to buy the laundromats that these brokers are trying to sell, and they're not hearing anything back. Do you have any tips in that situation?
No, I run into the same problem when I try to reach out to the brokers, because I have people like you wanting to know what's available in the marketplace, and I just want to be educated as to what's available, to see what multiples are going for, try to get as much information on the market that I can. And I get brokers not calling me back, no professionalism whatsoever. or when you do call, they don't tell you that it's already under contract, and they waste your time. And so it's a struggle. I tell everybody that listens that I sent out 1,000 flyers last year, 1,000. And I got 2 responses, 2 out of 1,000. So I tell everybody, you're looking for laundromats. The best way to understand laundromats and get a better feel for it is to go and drive and go look at laundromats. And every time you go into a laundromat, drop off a letter that basically says, "Hi, I like your laundry. I want to buy it. Call me." That's all. And put it under the door, or give it to the attendant and give the attendant $1. And you're going to say, "Why $1?" I says, "Because that's what postage is today." You hand the attendant $1 and say, "Give this to the boss. Give this to the patron." They'll give it to him. You just paid them $1 to give them a piece of paper. They'll give it to him, most likely. And you will probably find out more sellers will call you when nobody else is involved than if I'm involved. And that's just the way they are. The craziest thing that I think about is that I've got all you wonderful people in this podcast and this Q&A, and you're asking me all these questions about how to buy a laundromat because you don't know and you don't want to make a mistake in buying a business. And I appreciate that. So you seek counsel with Jordan and myself and other people like mine to help you, assist you in not making mistakes and to buy a decent business for a reasonable price. Why wouldn't you as a seller want to do the same thing? Because you are a one-time seller now. You've never sold a business before in your entire life. And you're going to go out there and think you can convince somebody like you guys who are asking questions for me for the first time. You think you're going to be able to help him and he's going to be able to help you buy a business. It's only a disaster waiting to happen. Somebody's going to sue somebody because you're not experienced with it. Neither are sellers. Almost every seller that I've encountered recently is a first-time seller. They have no idea what they're doing. And that's the way you ought to approach it with, this guy's trying to feel his way out too, just like you are.
Man, you good? You good? Okay. I was going to let you stay on that soapbox as long as you needed to. Okay. How much did you pay Dr. Hubert Bombay to ask, now can we talk about the problems with makeup air and lint?
No, come on. He didn't say that.
Yeah. Look, here you go.
Where?
Is this your friend? Who is this? Who is this person?
Wait a minute.
You're about to get banned, Dr. Hubert Bombay. How dare you bring that up? Andrew we're on another like 2 hours now just because of that. So gosh.
What would you like to know? I mean, I'll go into a couple of premises and I won't go too deep.
Oh gosh.
Okay. I don't
get some dinner. I'll be right back.
Yeah. I don't think that you can have enough makeup or combustion air behind the dryers. Period. And any way you can get air to the back of your dryers, do it. I don't care if you put fans above doors. I don't care if you cut a little bit so the bottom of the door is a little higher. Instead of 1 inch, it's 2 inches off the ground, so you get air underneath the dryers. I don't care if you put vents above the curtain wall, above the dryers. I don't care if you put egg crates above where the ceiling tiles meet the wall, right above the dryer. I don't care if you break a hole in the back of the wall and you put a metal wrought iron there so no one can come into the back of your laundromat, and you feed it fresh air. You'll never have enough fresh air in my mind, period. We slam them behind 30 inches and you say, good luck, and the dryers are just starving for air. That's the makeup air and combustion air conversation. Lint, wow. Lint's a big problem, and we haven't really resolved it yet. I think that which manufacturer came out with a lint-free application?
I think it was Alliance.
Okay, there's no such thing. Sorry. You still get lint. It still goes out the exhaust. It still hits the roof at 45 miles an hour at somewhere between 120 and 145 degrees. It still gets sucked right back into your laundromat via the intake boxes that are sitting on your roof for fresh air and makeup air, bringing that in. It gets sucked right back in. It lays a nice layer of fire-induced lint on top of all your ceilings, and it makes it a little less safe overall over a prolonged period of time. So I've got my ideas on how to solve the lint issue, but I haven't been able to capitalize on it and show everybody how to do it right.
Listen, I think we need to set up a panel with Dr. Bombay, Patrick, and Jodan Reed and just turn you guys loose on makeup air and lint.
Yeah.
That sounds
actually,
like
you know what?
Sounds like a party.
We'll podcast on it.
Yeah.
We should do one, and then everybody will have all of it.
Yeah. And then maybe instead of bringing it up and talking about it, I could just be like, hey, go listen to this podcast episode. I endured it once so that I don't have to endure it every time we do these things. So thanks a lot, Dr. Bombay. Yeah. Yeah. That would be okay. The people have spoken. They want it.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a brand of washing machine that you recommend?
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to divulge your thought process?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Will you divulge it? Give us some insight.
It is a piece of equipment that is reasonably priced, that I can buy locally, that people like to repair, and parts are readily available. That's the brand. They all have their 5-year warranties. They'll all last. Your average front load washer should last 12 to 15 years. Your dryers, 20 to 25 years. You're going to ask me whether I thought an Electrolux would last longer than a Laundromat, or the same machine, sorry, an Ipso or a Continental or a Dexter or a Speed Queen. Well, you'll get arguments from all of them that they'll all last longer than the other one. So I'm not here to create a friction between distributors, obviously, but I don't consider the brand of equipment when I buy an existing laundromat. I just want to know how old is it and what brand is it, so I know what kind of problems I'm going to encounter if I am by owning used equipment. I mean, I can't sit here and argue with you. If I bought a Continental store that had 8-year-old washers and I bought a Speed Queen store with 8-year-old washers, I'm going to look at it and go, can I get both of them fixed? Are they parts readily available? Yes. Well, I'm not going to not buy that laundromat because the return is not any better than the other one. It's a preference. It's a personal choice. Now, some people will tell you they like Speed Queen better than they like anything else. Great. So,
yeah, totally.
Jordan, you want to add to that, or?
I mean, listen, I agree with you. I think they all have kind of their nuances, and if those nuances matter to you, then there you go. And like you said, there's going to be people who argue pretty strongly for one brand or another. I am not one of them. I want a brand that's going to do the job, that I can get parts for, that I can get repaired when that happens, and that's, gonna help me run a profitable business. Are there brands that do that better than others? Yeah, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I'm sort of with you. I'm a little bit agnostic on the branding there. We got a few more questions. Dude, we've been going forever and there's still a lot of people here. So you got like 5 more minutes?
Oh, I got all the time you want.
Oh my gosh, don't say that. We're gonna get back into Lent again. How do you study a neighborhood to determine if it's good?
Well, okay. Well, first of all, I don't think that there's any neighborhood that doesn't have a laundromat. So I don't know of one unless you're going to tell me that you do and you found one and it's a gem. And in which case I say, how many renters do you have in a half a mile radius? I don't care what city you're in or town you're in. And if you can tell me you have at least 1,500 to 2,000 renters, I'll say, build your laundromat. You'll make money. No problem. But short of that, you're asking me to look at not only what the cost of the new store is going to be, which we briefly touched on, but then who are my competitors and how far out do I go? And that's going to be based on what my demographics are in what city or town that I'm in. So I need to understand my market first, which is human beings and whether they're renters or laundromat owners. And I mean, house owners, homeowners. I don't include in any of my calculations whether a homeowner is going to use a laundromat or not, because most of them do at least once a year, because either A, something breaks down, or B, they want to wash some big comforter or something. So, and most of them don't have the capacity at home, but I don't include those. So I'm just talking exclusively about renters and what is your rental market, and then what are my competitors, and I'm going to guess. I'm going to do my darndest to guess what that laundromat is doing based on what I see. So when I go in and I look at a laundromat and it's got fair parking and it's got it's an older shopping center and it's got a liquor store and a restaurant and a nail salon and a dental office, I know that the restaurant and the liquor store are going to occupy the more parking than the other two are, and it's going to be about the same hours that I am open. So now I've got to have to weigh that in, and then I'm going to look at my competitors to see if they're better or worse than I am and what they do. And I'm going to walk in their laundromat and I'm going to say, this is a B laundromat. And I'm going to guess it probably does 10,000. I don't care, whatever it is. And you're going to start to rate every one of the laundromats that you go in, because you're going to have an opinion. You can't wait for someone to give you an answer. You've got to educate yourself and look at it and go, okay, this looks like it's a pretty good laundry. I'm going to look at my demographics and I'm going to say, I only have 2,000 people for 5 laundromats. That's only 400 people per laundromat. It won't work. So there are some levels that you have to look at, but I look at the competition first. Actually, I look at the demographics first. And if the demographics support another laundromat based on how many competitors I have in a half a mile or a mile radius, I'll make a decision as to whether or not I want to put a new laundromat there, or will I want to buy one of the existing laundromats and remodel it with more larger machines and spend half the money or a third of the money doing the same thing I would with a new store and be that much more ahead of the game.
Are you, Alex is asking a question. I think, Alex, this is a question. I don't know.
Yeah,
I've already
Alex.
butchered one of your questions, but I think the question is, are you altering or adjusting your calculations for renters anymore? I'm assuming you mean because more and more rental space are being built with laundry facilities, or at least that's a perception. Are you adjusting
Well,
calculations
okay.
because of that?
Well, yeah, I have. And in fact, I have a Bible here. It's called the Business Reference Guide. It has every business in the United States of America that is selling and all their multiples and everything you need to know about the business. Now, I bought this. I just got the recent one. I actually had a 10-year-old model and I said I needed to change it in. And it's interesting what they have to say about laundromats, which I don't believe what they say. So I'm having a struggle. I've already talked to a couple of people in the CLA, and I've had some other conversations with other laundromat owners. And
What are they saying in there?
And they're, what's that?
What are they saying in there?
Well, they're saying 40%, and I'm saying 40%. So let's talk about renters. It's going to be like Lent, so I'm going to need a few minutes. So there's a rental population and there's an owner population. All right. That's how they look at it. On the renter population, you're not a rental unit per se if you're a condominium and you have facilities. So those facilities, which are few and far between, and those facilities that the apartment buildings have a small laundromat there. So in a 100-unit building, you may find 3 laundry rooms, and each laundry room has 8 washers and 8 dryers. That's 24 machines to handle 100 people. I'm calculating that if there are 2,000 renters in my market area, whether it's a half a mile or a mile, whatever I'm using, I'm going to take 75 to 80% of them and say they're going to be my customers, and the other 20 to 25% of the population are not going to be my customers, and I'm not going to rely on them. They're just going to they're going to stay in their apartment buildings, and they're going to live with the fact that they can't get to their washers and dryers soon enough because someone fell asleep and they've left their load in there for about 3 or 4 hours because they're in the comforts of their home, and everybody forgets they have laundry. Everybody. So you're now causing a traffic jam there, but I'm not going to worry about that. But I've allocated 20 to 25% of that population are going to use those machines, and the other 75 are going to use a laundromat. Now, the new adjunct in the last 5 years has been pick up and delivery, wash, dry, fold. Same renters, but you're also going to add people that are at home that don't want to do their laundry. That's a different subset. I'm not going to go into that. But you do have, now you look at self-service and you say, okay, how many of those people now are going to be doing wash, dry, and fold? And I'm going to lose them to wash, dry, and fold versus now. So 5, 10%, you're going to get close, but you're not going to get an exact answer because there's a science to it. And you have to look at the numbers that are being presented and say, is it reasonable to expect me to get 10 to 15% of a certain market as opposed to getting 40 or 50%? And if I'm in the 10 to 15%, I'm comfortable that I'm going to be able to do the volume I need to do based on the amount of money I'm going to spend to either buy or remodel an existing laundromat. There you have my take.
Awesome. I still have a few questions. How do you determine prices? Do you need to consider sort of your, well, actually, hold on. Before that, I think Ryan's question pertains to this. Talking demographics, how many rental units is needed per laundromat to be successful store for a 3,000 square foot building?
Wow. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to write something down here. Hold on so I don't lose my place. Okay. Answer the question. Ask the question again.
Okay. How many rental units are needed per laundromat to be successful for a 3,000 square foot building?
Depends on how many. Well, if the average house, door, or unit is generating $70, just ask yourself, if my laundromat needs to do 30,000, I take 30,000 and I divide by 700 or 70. That gives me 428 customers I need coming into that laundromat every month. If I only have 1,000 renters in a half a mile radius and I have 4 other laundries, you ain't going to make it. Because you're going to be asking for 40% of the market, and the other 60 is going to share it with the other 4 laundromats that are already there. So it's a mathematical equation. I look at the demos first, and then I go to the marketplace to say, okay, in this area, there happens to be X amount. Multiply that by 70 as an example. I'm going to go to Toledo, Ohio, and I'm going to look at the demographics in a 1 mile radius. And in a 1 mile radius, it tells me that there are 1,500 rental units. Okay, I'm going to take a 75% of that 1,500 and that gives me 1,125 rental units. I'm going to take that 1,125 and I'm going to multiply $70, and I'm going to say approximately $78,750 are being spent in a 1 mile radius of that particular location. And now you want to divide that up amongst the 3 laundromats that are there. Then you can divide that amongst the 3 laundromats based on whether they're a zombie, whether they're a nice one, whether they're larger, whether they have more parking, whether the prices, etc. That's how I go about looking at each and every location. That's how I start.
What you had, maybe you said this, I was writing down questions. You had contention about the 40% number. What number are you using?
Would it be reasonable to expect that you'd get 40% of any market? No, it's a lot easier to get 10% than it is 40%. So I'm going to be really conservative and say, if I can get 15% of the marketplace and do the numbers I need to do, I don't need to worry about 25, 30, or 40%. That would be like, that reminds me of the distributor that says, well, if it does 5 turns, it'll do this. If it does 7 turns, it'll do this. Of course it will. That's simple math. Can you give me a basis for that answer? 5 turns, 7 turns, 9 turns. No, you can't. I go back to demographics. I start with demographics and I look at demographics, and that's what tells me the story. There's approximately $78,000 being spent in that radius for those 1,125 potential customers, potential doors or families spending $70 a month.
Yeah. And that's, going back to my first debacle of a laundromat purchase. I mean, that's the story I was sold, right? Like, hey, look at these numbers. They started at like 5 or 6 turns. That was the starting point, and went up from there. And that store was never going to do that many turns. And I didn't know any better, right? Because I didn't know how to look at demographics and make any calculations whatsoever. So I was like, well, yeah, that looks awesome. Let's do that.
Right.
And that was an expensive lesson for me that you don't have to pay for, because you just got it right here for free.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Alex said, how long is a piece of rope? Yeah, it's a little bit that. Yeah, it's a little bit that for sure. Okay. Last question. I mean, I know there's some other ones.
Yeah. Hold on. One more. It says, I'll give you one. It says, hey, new guy here, payment technologies are changing. Yeah. And I would not buy machines that are specific to a technology for payment, as it will change. Okay. They don't make them that way. You can either have a coin, you can have a hybrid, or you can have just a card. But they're all wired so that you can add systems to it. There's not necessarily, you have to, when you buy a machine, that it is card-centric or coin-centric. It is coin-centric. That's how they come. You can change it from that point in time. Is that about right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm kind of assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong here. First of all, I don't think you have another week of claiming to be a newbie here. You're full in, now, but, and appreciate the input. So I'm assuming what you mean by that is you wouldn't pay the machine. I'm assuming by machines, you don't mean washing machines. I'm assuming you mean like a third-party payment system, and maybe I'm wrong about that. But yeah, those tend to be, the new payment systems do kind of come and go, but they do tend to be sort of bolt on, but it's something to consider, right? If you're going to go out and buy a swipe card system, well, guess what? Not that long ago, they came out with the tap payment system, and the tap payment system is the thing now, and maybe it's, we've got other things coming down the pipeline. So it is something to consider. And it can be a substantial investment. So it's something you should consider. I would sort of say, listen, it's here for at least long enough for me to make it worth my while. Then I'm going to consider investing in it. But not everybody has the same opinion. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I agree. Jeff Schiller can hit me up later. How do I suggest consider pricing adjustments when the nearest competition is 15 to 20 minutes away? That's a multi-layered 30-minute conversation with you about how to go about taking what you have and working with what you have to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, going back to, I mean, listen, I think it's a good opportunity to sort of address, I don't hear anybody else talking about this, but we need to do a better job of determining how much a pound of laundry costs us to do in each of our machines. Because if we know how much it costs us to do a pound of laundry in each of our machines, then we can dictate how what margins we want to build into our business. So if we want a 30% margin and we know it costs X amount of, you know, cents to do a pound of laundry, and we're doing 20 pounds of laundry, we can build into our costs the margin that we want to do. Instead, we're sort of shooting from the hip, most of us, and we're looking at our competitors and saying, well, they're charging this and mine's a little bit better or a little bit worse, so I'll charge a little bit more or a little bit less, or I'll be about the same, without any thought to, are we making money? And if so,
Well,
how much money are we making?
it's a big rabbit hole. If
Joe Dan says, answer the phone.
Trebor, yo, buddy, Robert, how are you? Robert and I have had some long conversations. Robert's from the San Fernando Valley area, and we've had conversations about dryers, their efficiency, and how much it costs to run a dryer. To, you know, what's it cost to run a wash machine? And so, you know, you start to open it up, and you know, you're gonna get manufacturers saying, well, we do this and we do this, and we have less this, and we have more of this, you know, and there's so many moving parts that it would be, it's going to take somebody that is Mensa quality, that is in computer software programs to write this stuff out, to get it. So a real basic rudimentary way is to take all your fixed expenses on a monthly basis and take the revenue that was generated from washers and determine exactly how many pounds were done. And then you'll have to break it down to go from pounds to what is your average pound? Is it a 30-pound machine or 40-pound machine? And what did you charge for that? And then you get to take all the utilities and all those things, and you have to break out my my lighting, my bathroom usage, and you have to back out all of these. Is it 2%? Is it 1%? Is it 8%? Is it 9%? And you're going to continually be trying to shape this to get you an answer of what it costs per pound, so that you can say, on my 40 pounders it's this much, on my 50 pounders it's this much. Don't have it's so the answer to your question is no one's done it yet. I've been here for 40 years and I've probably had hundreds of thousands of these conversations, and no one has really been able to identify exactly what it takes. And then someone's going to look at you and go, oh, but those aren't Wascomats. Well, those aren't Continentals. Well, those aren't Dexters. You should hear what we do over. The numbers jump.
I would argue that the numbers can be done.
Yes.
But it's going to take work to do them, and nobody has built the system to do the work to do them. And
I agree.
I think it's doable. I have a wash, dry, fold, pickup and delivery calculator that'll tell you exactly how much money it costs you. Built in is a little bit of these calculations here.
Is that on your website?
Yeah, it's on the website. You can go try it out for free.
Okay.
Try it out for free anytime. And you know, it's you know, you got to make some assumptions to make it happen, right? The precision is difficult to get, but you got to make some assumptions. But I think it's doable, and I think somebody smarter than me can figure it out. And I think when they do, that's going to be super valuable to us, because instead of saying my competitor's charging $4, I'll charge $4 too, you can say, hey, it's going to cost me $3 to run the machine. I want to make a 30% margin here, so here's my price point, right? And that's an easy math equation once you know what it costs you. But somebody's got to do that work first.
Absolutely.
Not it. Somebody go do it.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. Yeah. And thank you for clarifying. So the going back to the you know, the payment system conversation, there was a question asked about the 5-card payment system. Is it worth adding a digital payment system or a 5-card payment system into the laundromat? And the assumption to Columbus Express laundry, the assumption was that it's hardwired in, and I have not seen that, and you said you haven't seen that either. and they wouldn't do it if it was hardwired in, because the payment technologies are changing so quickly. But I mean, do you have any thoughts on digital payment systems in general, card payment systems?
I think that the time has come for them. I think that particularly when you have the larger machines, which would be even 60s, but 80s or larger machines, you've got a guy going in there 3 times a week to collect those boxes because they don't make a big enough coin box. What they ought to do is just put a chute that goes all the way to the floor and have a safe down there that can collect, 3 weeks worth of quarters, because you're collecting those 80-pound machines. If you're a decent store, you're getting $10, $12 a vend, and you have some customer in there. She went up, she got $40 in quarters, and she sat there and she went like this. And she put in, 40 quarters, 50 quarters. Well, that thing can probably hold, I don't know, 250 of them. So 5 vends and it stops. And you have to collect the machine.
Dude, I think brilliance just happened here. I love the chute that goes down to a floor safe. I think that it's got to be on like a cart though, so you can just kind of wheel it out.
Yeah, but
you don't want to be lifting.
It would be a lot easier if you just went and got a card system for that machine.
I agree. I agree. Okay?
I'm
a bigger fan of.
Now you have a debit and you have a bank and it shows you the money, and you kind of spread it out. So
I'm a bigger fan of that. But why did we not do this like 20 years ago, where we just had a chute that goes down to?
Listen, 20 years ago, and I would have the largest repair company in California.
That's what we should have done. That's what we should have
done. I'm a little bit I'd be happy to consult with anybody out there that actually thinks they'd like to do this, because it's going to take is about 4 employees, 4 vans, and some equipment, and you can make bank.
Yeah. Maybe I don't know. If anybody's interested, hit us up. Maybe we should just throw a partnership together and solve that problem.
I'm just looking for a couple
make
of mechanics
a boatload
that
of money.
Put to work.
Yeah. All right. If you're interested,
I mean,
hit me up and
I'll give you part of the company.
Yeah. We'll put a partnership together.
I'll give you a piece of the pie.
That's a very solvable problem.
It is. Just don't have any young up and coming whippersnappers that want to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's get the old guard out here. We'll make it happen. It's possible to have dollar coins, loyalty cards, debit cards for every machine. Yeah, it's possible. It's called hybrid store.
Yep.
For sure. Cool, dude. We're almost 2 hours deep.
I don't know.
You killed it as always, and you guys with the questions, as always, killed it again. Listen, I know we could go all night.
Let me put this out here. Here.
Yep. Spence is killing me right now.
There it is. laundromatsunfiltered.com. Did it get up there?
Yeah, I'll put it in there.
Put it in there. If you guys want to reach out to me, Michael Jameson, you had some, what do I do about my neighborhood? How do I look at it? Is it smart to use a broker? What's the average size of a typical new build? If you guys have those questions, just fire them off to me. Send them to my email. Send them to my website. I'll answer them for you. It's better to be armed with information than not.
Check this out. This is why I got to leave you. You guys are spending you remember Mr. Andrew? We had lunch with him one time.
I kind of do.
Down kind of by the beach. Yeah. This is Evangeline. Check out Evangeline Unicorn on YouTube. She's got her own YouTube channel over here.
No, why?
I told you it's my job to embarrass you. That's what I do. Dude, you rock. Check out laundromats-unfiltered.com if you want to connect up with Andrew. I put a link up earlier. If you want to book a consulting call with him, go do that. Look, they get it. They get it. They say hi. But Andrew, man, you are the man as always. We got to do this. We gotta get some sort of cadence going. Because
you want to do once a month? We can do once a month.
If there are 60 people that are here still over 2 hours later, listen.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to do this more often. So we'll,
All right.
next generation. Yeah. We got to do this again. So I'll hit you up. Stay tuned. And then I will be figuring out the calendar thing. So a
Yes.
subscribable calendar so that if you can get notifications when we got stuff going. Yeah. It's 9 p.m. on the East Coast.
Thank
East
you, guys.
Coasters. Good grief. Go to bed or something.
Thanks for attending. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm here if you need help.
You are the man. Again, everybody, thank you so much for joining. And this will be posted up on all the platforms. So if you need to go back and, enjoy this all over again, talk, replay, put on repeat the Lent talk. You can do that if you want to. And then we'll see you on the next one. So keep an eye out for the next one. We'll be doing it again.
Thanks for your time.
Appreciate it, guys.